So in that story that Pastor Jen read just a snippet of a few moments ago, that parable that Jesus tells, there's a master who leaves on a very long journey, and he leaves bags of gold with his servants. It's such a stark image, right? I'm going to leave, and here's all my wealth. It's in bags of gold, and I'm going to put it into your hands to use as best you can for me. The older version of that story, the version that you and I most likely grew up with, the translation's not bags of gold, it's what? It's talents, right? We call that the parable of the talents. When you and I think about what a talent is, the image in our mind is not of a bag of gold, is it? It's of what? Of like a skill or an ability, right? Something that we have that's internal to us, that our own intelligence or our own abilities or our own personal kind of the resources of our character, of our imagination, of our intellect. We have turned that word talent into that sort of thing. But originally, actually, the word talent in biblical times, it meant something like a bag of gold. It was a unit of money. And it wasn't a small unit of money either. A talent was the amount of money that it would take a typical worker 15 years to be able to earn. To make things easy, we might just call it $1 million. That a talent would be $1 million. And so when that master is leaving, he's giving one of his servants $5 million. He's giving one of them $2 million. And he's giving them the third of them $1 million. It says he gave each one of them according to his own ability. What this parable is asking us is basically this question. If the master leaves and he comes to you, his servant, and he puts everything that he has into your hands and he says, use it well. Well, then what do you do with it? How do you use it? Put it simpler, parable's asking us the question, how do you go about being a good steward? A good steward. A few weeks ago, I got what you might call a surprise lesson in stewardship in action. It was Wednesday night, and I was over in the chapel. I was finishing up teaching the Romans Bible study for the night and saying goodbyes to people, turning off the lights, gathering my things up, and I went home. By the time I finally got into my neighborhood, it was about 8:30 at night. And I turned down a street that I drive down practically every day. And that late at night, there were cars that were absolutely clogging the road. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought, has somebody died? Why would there be this many people in the neighborhood, on this street in my neighborhood at 8:30 at night? And I thought, well, there might be a big sporting event or something that I'm not aware of. But I thought, who throws a house party at 8:30 on a school night? Just people don't really do that much. And then I pulled up a little closer and I realized that I knew the house that all these cars were kind of parked in front of. It was Adam and Lee Ellen Key's house. They're members of our church. They were in the 945 service, just saw them. And I thought, well, my goodness, has something happened to the Keys? And so, like a weirdo, I pulled up in front of their house and I kind of tried to look in there to see what was going on. And then I noticed that there was a banner hanging down from the ceiling of their porch, and it had writing on it. And I read the writing that was on the banner, and I was just astounded. And then, like a real creep, I circled back around, and I got my phone out, and I drove real slow, and I videoed all of it. And I want to show you the video. So watch this. It's only about a minute long, but watch it. And then when I pause in front of the house, see if you can read what's written on the banner. All right, here we go. Might want to pull the lights down a little bit, Patrick. It's a dark video. It's a lot of cars. Okay, so here's their house. It's a lovely home. There's the banner. You see the banner? Doesn't end there. It's all half a street of cars left to go. So did you read what was on the banner? You couldn't see it. It's too small, right? It says FC College Ministries. And I read that, and I looked at it, and I was like, FC? What is that? FC. And I was like, wait a second, I work there. That's First Church. That's us. It suddenly hit me. That's us. That's First Church College Ministries. And I counted the cars. There were 13 vehicles parked in front of the Keys house. That's just remarkable to me that at 8:30 on a Wednesday night, we had gotten 13 carloads of college students to drive up from Fayetteville to do college small groups at the Keys house. That's just remarkable. And what I mean by it is the fact of it is just wonderful. It's remarkable. But I also want to give you a little bit of background on why it's happening. Our college ministry, which is brand new, you've heard me talking a little bit about it over the past few months, but it just started at the beginning of this year, right, in January of 2021. It was begun by Riley Harris, who joined our church staff almost exactly a year ago as our youth minister. And when Riley was coming in, he was getting ready to join the staff, he was talking to me about everything that he wanted to do. Talking to me about what he wanted to continue that we've been doing, and talking to me about some new things that he wanted to do. And then every once in a while he would talk about, and I want to start a college ministry. And I would kind of like, okay, Riley, that's fine. Let's talk about the youth ministry. And he'd always describe it, and then it'd say, and I want to start a college ministry. And in my mind I thought, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, here we are in the middle of a global pandemic. We were having in-person church last fall, but there weren't a whole lot of people coming yet. And there weren't very many people at all of the youth coming to the youth ministry. And so I thought, here, Riley has got to figure out how to revamp and re-energize the youth ministry. He's going to have to figure out how to connect with kids, many of whom are not even coming to the church. He's going to have to figure out how to connect with adults and all the rest. And I thought, this college ministry thing, it's gonna go away, because he's gonna get to the church and he's gonna realize the size of the job that he's got on his hands. And I'm gonna hear less and less about the college ministry until I just don't hear anything else about it at all. And he's gonna realize not only the job that he has on his hands, but he's gonna realize how tough it is for a town like Springdale to pull something like that off, because we're not the college town. We're the town next to the college town. And so a college ministry is probably not even a viable thing. Okay, the thing is, I knew that Riley was the right guy for our youth ministry job. Everything in me told me that we needed him on our staff, that he was the person that God was calling to be here with us and to be the shepherd to our youth. And so when he kept pressing me on this, externally, this is what I did. I said, sure, Riley, that's great. That's a great idea. And I nodded my head, big smile. And internally, I was going, no, there's no way. Just shaking my head from side to side. There's no way that this is going to happen. Riley, please don't even try it. And a year later, what do we have? What we have is over a dozen carloads of kids from the University of Arkansas who are driving up to Springdale every other week to do college small groups. And the week that they're not coming up and going to people's houses like Adam and Lee Ellen Key's house, you know what they're doing? They're meeting with Riley up at Mount Sequoia, at the worship center up at Mount Sequoia. And Michael Cooper and his praise team that play at 9:45 are going up there and leading them in worship nights. And we're feeding them. They're eating pizza and they're having fellowship together. On the largest nights, we've had over 40 college students present at these things. And this is something that a year ago, it didn't exist. I didn't think it ever would. And because of one man's determination to make it succeed, it's flourishing. That is stewardship. I don't think that I could find a better illustration of what good stewardship is other than that right there. I mean, I could look for an example in a movie, I could look for an example in a book somewhere, something out of a history lesson, and I wouldn't find a better one than that right there, than Riley Harris, with nothing more than a vision and the determination to carry it out, goes from 0 to 40 college kids just like that. We are reaching young men and women for Christ because of the vision that he had and the determination that he had to carry it out. That is a wonderful thing. The story that Jesus tells us this morning in Matthew 25, the one about the bags of gold, what we call the parable of the talents, well, the full story goes like this. One day a master left town on a long journey, and he entrusted his entire wealth with 3 of his servants. To one of them, he gave $5 million. To a second one, he gave $2 million. To a third one, he gave $1 million. And he was gone for years. When he came back, he called these 3 servants together, and he said, I want to see what you've done with all that I entrusted into your care. The first servant came up with a big smile on his face. And he said, Master, you gave me $5 million, and I did everything that I could with it. I invested it the best way that I possibly knew how, and I've turned that $5 million into $10 million. Here is all that you gave me and so much more. And the master was so proud of him. He smiled and he patted him on the back, and he said, well done. Enter into the joy of your master. For I entrusted you with a little, and you have made much. And he sent him on his way. The second one he called forward, and he said, tell me what you've done. And he said, he was so proud of himself, the second servant. He said, Master, you gave me $2 million. And I did the best I could with it. I invested it the best that I knew how. And I was able to take that $2 million and turn it into $4 million. Here is what you gave me back and more. And the master was so proud of him. He said, I set you over a little, and you have made much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he gave him a big hug, and he sent him on his way. And then the third servant came up, and he had a bag of money with him. And it kind of had some dirt on top. He's kind of having to dust it off. And he looked at the master, and he said, I've never really liked you. We've never gotten along. I don't like the way that you treat people. I think you're unfair. You reap where you do not sow. You take that which does not belong to you. So you know what I did? I took your money and I buried it right in the ground. And here it is, to the penny, everything that you gave back to me, but not a penny more. And we can guess what the master's reaction to that was. He basically said this, all right, that's fine. You don't want to have anything to do with me? Well, I don't want to have anything to do with you either. So I'll tell you what, don't let the door hit you in the rear end on the way out. And he sent him on his way. It's not a tough story to figure out. It asks us the question of stewardship. If you were the servant of a master and he was about to go away on a long trip and he took a portion of what he had and he placed it into your hands, what would you do with it? There is a little trick to the story, though, and it's something that I think we tend to gloss over. You see, that third servant, he gets up in the master's face and he says some stuff to him that the other 2 servants don't say. We skim over that. We just assume that the third servant got what was coming to him. But we should ask the question, what if he's right? What if the master really is a hard man? What if he's a cruel man, a vindictive man? What if it's true that he reaps where he does not sow and that he takes that which does not belong to him? Well, if all of that were true, we might say that the third servant was justified in taking the course of action that he did. We might go further and say that he was even wise in doing what he did. We might look in the mirror and say that if all of that was true, we'd probably act in the same way. But here's the thing. If the parable is about us and God, if that's the servant and the master, if that's what Jesus is trying to get across, well, then we know that our master is not cruel, don't we? We know that he's not vindictive. We know that he cannot be charged with unfair business practices. We know that the servant was just flat out wrong. And in fact, we know that our God is very much other than that. Psalm 145, verse 9. It's one of my favorite verses in all of Scripture. It says that the Lord is good to all, and his mercy is over all of his works. So it isn't the servant's opinion of the master that was correct. It's rather the master's evaluation of the servant. He was lazy. He was slothful. Perhaps most of all from the standpoint of stewardship, of thinking about stewardship. We might say that the worst thing about him is that he just didn't dare at all. He was unimaginative. He was uncreative. He was unmotivated. Look, it is because God is merciful. It's because God is forgiving. It's because God is loving that we can take risks for the kingdom. If God was a mean and a petty God, then we'd want to squirrel all of our resources away, wouldn't we? If God was not a God who gave freely, then we'd want to safeguard everything. We'd want to hoard everything because we wouldn't be able to trust God. We'd know that if things ever got tight, if we ever got in a pinch, that we would be the only ones that we could rely upon. But that's not who God is. God gives freely. He gives abundantly. He gives an overabundance of blessings and of gifts to us. And it's because God is so generous with us that we can take what he gives and make something beautiful out of it. There's a moment this time of year that I just love. It is this moment that we're in right now. November is my favorite month of the year. Do you recognize those trees? Yeah, they're the ones in the parking lot just to the west of the Family Life Center. Some of you probably walked by them when you walked in this morning. But you know what? They don't look like that today. I took that picture on my way into church exactly a week ago. Because as I was walking in from the back parking lot, I looked at that tree right there. It's my favorite tree on our property. I looked at it and I thought, it doesn't get any better than that. This morning, it is in the fullness of its autumn glory. And so I stopped and took a picture of it. If you walk by that tree on your way out today from church, half the leaves are gone. A week from now, the tree will be bare. There's a seasonality to life. Things come and then they go and they are no more and we don't get them back. First verse of Ecclesiastes 3 says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven." Some translations say a time for every purpose under heaven. Nothing in life is permanent. We will all get to the end of our lives and we'll discover that life itself is not permanent. The master goes away for a while, and at the end, he will call us back to himself. We have an opportunity now, right now, to use the gifts that he's given us. And if we squander that opportunity, there will be a cost. Because once the season of life goes away, we're not going to get it back. When the master returns, when he calls us to himself, the opportunity that we have to do something really beautiful for him and for his kingdom will be gone. So what should we do? What we should do is to take what he has put into our care and multiply it. Take a risk for him, knowing that if the risk doesn't work out, he is full of compassion and forgiveness and love. But if we will risk, if we will dare for the kingdom, then it may just be that he will multiply the harvest before our very eyes. And then by his grace, allow us to be the ones to go out into the field and to bring it in. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.